and welcome to the first ever episode of the Lost Law Project. For our first episode, we are talking about a subject close to my heart and my heritage, Maltese folklore. Our guest today, Simon Cutajar, has gone above and beyond in preparing for this video and has translated several legends that have only ever been available in Maltese into English, just so that all of us have the opportunity to hear them. I've followed Simon on Twitter for a few years now, and his dedication to not only understanding but also spreading awareness and knowledge of Maltese folklore has always blown me away. The work he's done for this video in translating stories is so important in continuing to preserve these myths and legends, which are quickly disappearing as the world around us moves into a new modern age. With that said, let's get to it. I'm excited to present Simon Cutajar. So firstly, great. I'm so excited to meet you in person, virtually. And to start off, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what your background is?
Sure. So, hi, my name is Simon Cutajar, and I was born in Malta to Maltese parents. I spent my early childhood in St. Julian's, but I consider myself to be from Aura, since that's basically where I grew up. My mom is from Slema, and my father is from Zebuch. While I was born and grew up in Malta, I left the island at 21 to pursue higher education. I've lived in Denmark and the United Kingdom, and I'm currently based in Stockholm, Sweden. I try to keep myself engaged with what's going on back home, and I try to visit at least once a year if I can. Having lived away from the island for so long, it basically means that over time I've developed a strong interest in the country's legends, folklore, history, and language, as you can probably attest to our many discussions over Twitter.
Oh, many discussions. I am forever grateful for you constantly answering my little barrage of questions.
To oblige.
I know I find it really hard to get my hands on any kind of reference material here in Australia. How do you go about gathering resources and gathering stories?
Well, it's a bit tricky since I no longer live in Malta, I'm limited to the information immediately available to me, and I don't really have the luxury of visiting, say, the National Archives or the libraries in Malta. However, if you know where to look, there's a surprising amount of information available on the internet. There's also a lot of material available in published materials, such as books, which you can probably find to buy, though some of it is extremely hard to find because of small print runs. I thought I'd talk about a few legends I found that discuss the origins of the Maltese people. I have to admit I was only aware of around one or two legends at first, but I ended up going down a surprisingly deep rabbit hole with around 8 different legends across 4 different languages.
So amazing.
Yeah, it was a trip, to be honest. I've provided citations for all the material I've referred to, so you can do your own reading and go down your own rabbit holes, feel free. And with that said, I think we can begin. So I'd like to talk a little bit about a person who I think was seminal in basically the study and collecting of folklore in Malta, and this is basically Manuel Margaret. So he was born in 1851 in Valletta, Malta. He was ordained a Jesuit priest, and he contributed to early archaeological excavations in the Maltese islands, notably, for example, Al-Himyarī. So even over 100 years ago, Margaret was already keenly aware that Maltese folklore and folktales were fading in front of his eyes. So he tried to write down as much as he could. He made trips to Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon to compare the local folklore with that of Malta, and he traveled to Tunisia for more archaeological research. Margaret also expressed interest in traveling to Libya in order to find out more about a tribe of Maltese origin that had settled there before the Arab period, but unfortunately he died suddenly in Sfax, Tunisia in 1907. So I think I'll start with a legend that first appeared in 1902. So it was part of a series of local publications called Kodbat al-Modiyya Tazmin. Margaret's writings from the series were collected by the folklorist George Mifsud Kirkop to form the book Ghariema, which I have here. So it's this. So I've translated this particular legend from its original Maltese into English, so any translation errors are my own. When was it that people in Malta used to travel with landships? Here's what the Maltese say. When the land was flat, when it was under the control of a single sultan, when the Maltese islands were joined together and to the lands in the southwest, before the land broke apart. They also say that one could travel using landships. Both the Maltese and the distant past, as well as of today, will say that when our ancestors came here, there were no people, no buildings, and no trees. There was nothing but wild thyme. There were no places suitable for people to live, save for seaside caves or other places further inland. They began by digging channels for olive trees and grapevines. They built rubble walls, and to begin with, they lived in huts. The holes in the rock made for the huts' wooden beams are still visible everywhere. So, this is one of my favorite Maltese legends for many reasons, and I've spent countless hours trying to extract glimmers of meaning from it. It clearly must be a very old legend, since it describes the Maltese islands as a single landmass, as opposed to an archipelago. Could this be, for example, a description of the temple builders that once lived in Malta? Are the landships the source of the cart ruts commonly found on the islands? Who were these ancestors of ours that came to these lands, and where do they come from? And when did they come?
That is amazing. It's just this image of Malta, this barren island with just wild thyme.
It honestly is one of my favorite legends. So there's actually another legend collected by Cutajar from Bethlehem. It was published in 1932. And it claims that the Maltese are descended from local shepherds that fled to Malta. He collected this legend from a local woman named Warda. I've translated this account from Maltese to English, so again, any errors are my own. In Bethlehem, it is said that there is a large cave that still has the following words engraved at its opening. We have filled this cave with black raisins, but you cannot even fill it with hay. The people that wrote these words lived like Arabs, lived in huts, and elected a leader from among themselves, one that they thought the wisest. They referred to him as the elder. They used to herd rams. One day, these shepherds heard that there were murderers, foreigners, in their area. They went to the elder to see what they could do, whether or not they should fight or negotiate with them. They were divided, and the elder did not want to pick a side, so he said, "Come tomorrow, and I will give you your answer. Just let me think." At dawn the next day, they went to find the elder, only to realize that he and his family were gone. They were shocked, as they had always known him to be a man of his word. One of the shepherds, however, noticed an upside-down basket in the middle of his hut. Lifting it up, they found two pigeons, one with its wings cut, and the other perfectly fine. The uninjured pigeon promptly flew away, while the one that had its wings cut ran around for a bit and went to hide. The shepherds stopped to try to figure out what the elder meant by this, and finally one of them said, "Oh, I've got it. Whoever can flee must flee, and whoever cannot flee must hide." They took all their necessary belongings and their rams and began to walk. However, they began to hear that the invading foreigners were all around them, including in nearby Egypt and Syria. Thus, they sold their fields, took a ship from Jaffa, and sailed to Malta, where they became the ancestors to today's Maltese.
I mean, look, I've heard of messenger pigeons. Pigeons as a message, something totally different. And my favorite part of that is that the elder just went, "Nah, I'm done. I'm out of here.
I'm out.
Stop you guys. Stop your fighting. Goodbye."
Figure it out on your own.
All right. Did you mention you had a legend related to Tunisia as well?
Yes. So there are a few related to Tunisia, actually. So here's one other legend collected by Manuel Margaret from Tunis, also found in the book Ghariema, and again translated from Maltese to English by myself. So there were two siblings that married two other siblings. At first, they lived together, but one day they had an argument and decided to live apart. One couple went to live in Malta and are the ancestors of all Maltese, while one other couple stayed in Tunisia and are the ancestors of all Tunisians. Maltese accompanying the knights on their annual corso when landing close to Tunis also used to say, "Hawn il-Maltija għandhom semhom f'din l-art." The Maltese had their counterparts in that land. This is also strangely corroborated in a book published in 1856 by Guglielmo Finotti, an Italian who was exiled to Tunisia due to his involvement in the Risorgimento, the unification of Italy. In particular, he states that to the east of Tunis, the tribe of Ulied Said claim that they share ancestors with the Maltese. Perhaps this was the tribe that Manuel Margaret was looking for before his sudden death. We may never know.
I like to imagine that Magri found them and he stayed with them, and it's a much better ending to his story. That's why
I would have been preferable, yes. There's a lot. His sudden death was really unfortunate because he had a lot of material. So he would have done so much more work with regards to Maltese folklore and archaeology.
I mean, look, when I started researching, when I actually started properly putting my head down to find stuff, his name was the first one on every list. Every book I've got has got a reference to him in there somewhere.
Yeah, he's pretty much seminal when it comes to the beginnings of Maltese folklore. That's basically it. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for having me on and for allowing me to share with you some of the origin legends of the Maltese people.
No, that was absolutely incredible. Even more incredible that you've taken these, translated them. So now, you know, all of us over here in the diaspora, whether we're in Australia, Canada, the UK, anywhere, like we can actually know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, no, they're now available in English from this video, and I'm more than happy for people to become more interested in Maltese folklore and our origins, basically.
Thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed hearing these myths about Malta's origins. This was only a short video. In fact, Simon has translated several other myths as well, which are available to listen to in the extended video linked below. Simon has also provided a full list of citations, which you can find in the description box. Alternatively, if you'd like to follow Simon on Twitter, his handle is Cutajar. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, I'd love you to give us a follow. We've got some amazing new guests planned coming up very soon.
But in Malta, I left the island and actually, you know what? I'm going to move this monitor.
Are there any orphans? I'm going to start a question over.
I ended up going,
It's, you know, that's quite an interesting mind shift. Oh my God.
By Arab geographer Ibn Abd Ibn Abd al-Munim Al-Himyarī. Okay, the Abd threw me off.